All right, so I will say welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today we are joined, as usual, by Sean Maguinness, the author of the up-and-coming Head Arm Instructional. Sean, how's it going, my friend?
Yeah, really good, Harry. Really good. It's sad how predictable you are, Alan.
Got your
That's
fucking mouth. And we have a debutant today. Not his first time on the All About Balance podcast, but the first time for an MMA review. We have Master Professor, Mr. Tommy. How's it going, sir?
Salam alaikum.
All right.
I'm very good.
So I'm good. Yes, I'm good. Thank you. Jack had to do father and job duties today. So Tommy is proving a much better replacement, but these things happen in MMA, I guess. So before we start, obviously we're looking at the UFC 252 card. We are not going to touch on Magomed Ankalaev and Ion Cutelaba because Ion Cutelaba on Tuesday tested positive for coronavirus and has not left Moldova. So we will skip over that. If anyone is interested in what could have happened in that fight, I put an article up on Attack the Back. You can go and find that via my Instagram. Essentially, the first fight was fucking madness. Ion Cutelaba decided to essentially running headbutt Magomed Ankalaev before the fight even started, and the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, overall, this card, what do you think, Tommy?
There's some pretty good matches. Let's run the card. So, of course, the main event, Stipe, Cormier, whoever wins that, Cormier will probably retire regardless of the outcome.
You
It
reckon?
would be nice to put. I think so. I don't think he's got. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't think he's got that many fights in him. But I think he wins. Actually, we'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah, sure.
I think, regardless of the result, he's going to retire. Hopefully on a good note, which I want to see if DC retire on a good note anyway.
I mean,
So.
I'll throw my thoughts in a second, but Sean, thoughts on the card overall?
yeah. I think it's a good card. I agree with Tommy. I think it's probably going to be DC's last fight. The only thing I
It's
can
fucking
think he's
blasphemy.
out for would be like a Brock Lesnar matchup or something crazy like that. But
How fucking stupid are you two?
No,
Jones at heavyweight, the trilogy.
I'm
Jones
not
at
gonna lie.
heavyweight.
He makes a lot of money fighting Brock Lesnar. But
Brock
Mate.
Lesnar.
I get
Yeah.
that, but the fight is
DC,
Jones.
I'm coming for you, motherfucker.
It's Jones at heavyweight. That's the fight. It's Jones at
what
heavyweight.
Jones?
At heavyweight, the trilogy.
Oh, we
That's it.
Cormier, yeah, but I mean, can Jones
You won't even
keep out of prison that long?
exactly.
Really?
I was about to say that.
Wow, the disrespect on the
I mean,
greatest of
Brock
all time's
Lesnar's a
name.
pretty intense dude, but he can keep himself out of problems with the law pretty easily, can't he?
Can
So-
he? Or do you reckon
Yes,
it just hasn't
he
been
can.
found out yet?
Compared to Jones?
Mate, Jones just gets caught. That's the difference.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But yeah, the card in general, though, is really good. I think it's definitely is one of those coronavirus cards in the sense that you get further down and there's some pretty wacky matchups and some people that are definitely getting like shots to fight in the UFC who, under any other circumstances would never get involved. But like I said to you, I've been enjoying the weirdness, so we'll see what happens.
One piece of news I do want to get your opinions on. I don't know if you guys have seen, but Max Roshkov has been cut from the UFC. So obviously
Really?
that was a controversial fight. Roshkov was supposed to debut on the Contender Series. However, he got put in at late notice against Austin Hubbard, 5 days notice, bad weight cut or a tough weight cut, gets in there and doesn't make the third round, right? Now, there was obviously a lot of controversy and speculation about how Drysdale managed that fight, managed that minute, and equally how Roshkov sort of responded to Drysdale's encouragements. I'll start with you, Sean. Like, what do you think about Roshkov getting cut?
Well, that was the first time that I've heard it, to be honest.
It came out about an hour ago.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's brutal, but the main thing that we're all saying is that Roshkov, it was a golfing experience that caused those problems in the first place. Like when you compared him and Austin Hubbard in terms of how many fights they'd had and stuff, the experience level was huge, and for the experience he had, Max shouldn't really have been fighting in the UFC, and those problems showed themselves. So I think in the long run, for him, to be honest, it's going to be better getting another shot at the regionals, or if you gave, you were just talking about the Contender show, if you gave that another shot, I think he's at that stage of his career where he should be doing that, you know. So yeah, I think for him in the long run it'll be good, but that surprised me.
Tommy?
That's the guy from Robert Dryzok's
Correct.
camp, right? The
Yeah,
one who
correct.
didn't make the belt.
Correct. He didn't come off his stool yet.
I think it does make sense for the UFC to cut him just because of the image he's kind of portrayed. That, he didn't answer the bell. Of course, it's easier for backseat drivers who don't fight to say, "Oh yeah, he's a pussy. He didn't answer to the bell." But I mean, I'm not surprised the UFC cut him just because of that.
So I'm in two minds, right? Like, part of me agrees. Like, I agree with you, and I agree with both of you, frankly. Like, the golfing class is quite obvious. The golfing experience was obvious. It was also obvious that Max Roshkov can fight, and that kid's got some skills in the first round, right? But the problem that you're going to have is 6-0, 5-0 going in the UFC. The only person that I can really think of like that was Max Holloway, right? He was like 3-0, 4-0. But unless you're, Max Holloway.
Even then, he had Dustin Poirier for his debut, right?
Inside 6 fights, he had Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor.
I recall.
Yeah.
I still remember being pretty impressed with him, regardless of him getting subbed by, I think he got subbed by Triangle Armbar by Poirier. But I remember I was like, oh, this kid's really good. And he was young. He was only like 20 or 21 at the time.
Yeah.
Something along the lines of that.
But I think that there is an unwritten rule in the UFC, and I saw Ariel tweet about this. And the unwritten rule is if you take a short notice fight, you get given another chance.
Yes, but it also depends on your performance, right? Because who's that guy who beat CM Punk, the part-time fighter?
The journalist, Mike
Jackson, I think.
Yeah, Mike Jackson.
Mike Jackson.
Yeah, so he had a one shot, and he pretty much started messing around and just got cut. Yeah, so that happens too.
I do agree. I just think, it's for me personally, I think that a lot of speculation happened to do with that in-between round that didn't, I don't know, that was an inexperienced thing more than it was an egregious, a pushing of a fighter, for me anyway. And I think, for me personally, I think Roshkov showed enough in that first round to be given another chance. But look, here we are. I'd like to see Max Roshkov go to Cage Warriors or something similar, and let's see what he's got. And another little piece of news is Corey McKenna, Cage Warriors fighter, Welsh female. She appeared on the Contender Series last night. Got a win over a lady that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce her name, but she took a 3-round decision. And yeah, Dana White gave her a contract, so that'll be really interesting to see.
Oh man.
I think she's strawweight, so yeah, I'll be interested. I can double check that, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see. So yeah, let's move on. So Stipe and Cormier. I'll just set the scene before I let Sean dive into his own analysis. But I mean, this is one of the most storyline-rich fights you're going to find in MMA, right? So Stipe goes to Curitiba. He knocks out Verdum while running backwards into the cage. By the time Verdum face plants the floor, the entire of Curitiba is silent. You can hear him be like, I'm the fucking champ. Like, I'm the fucking champ. And then, he defends it against JDS, defends it against Francis Ngannou. And then Stipe's like, yeah, cool, bro. Here's this shovel left hook. DC had already won the light heavyweight, had been given the light heavyweight title from John Jones, then beats Rumble, then goes up, fights Stipe, beats Derek Lewis, and then gets finished by Stipe. So it's 1-1 in finishes. As Tommy already alluded to, Daniel Cormier is looking at retiring after this. He's 41. He's got a family. He's got kids. He's got a wrestling team. He's got AKA that he's basically the captain of, right?
And he's done it all. He's won light heavyweight, won heavyweight.
Strike Force. Yeah, he's done it all, right? He's done it all.
He won the Grand Prix Strike Force as well. So
he's done everything but beat John Jones.
Technically, he won no contest, so...
I mean, he got knocked the fuck out, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but still steroids, though. Still.
Mate. Nate Diaz says it right. Everyone's on fucking steroids.
Yeah, but he got caught. He got caught for picograms, so
yeah, sure. Picograms.
Not everybody gets caught for picograms. Paulo Costa, for example, he's never crossed 10. He's not. Wait,
he's never tested positive. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Yeah. Are you trying to say that Paulo Costa's on steroids? Is that what you're saying?
What?
No.
Mate, his physique from the Ultimate Fighter to now has not changed one bit. What are you talking about?
That's years of dedication.
It's years of it's
commitment.
that's 3 or 4 years of absolute dedication and
3 or 4
zero horse
months.
meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Sean, please take us away. What do you see happening in this fight?
Yeah, I think this is a really good fight. I think rubber matches are always pretty interesting just because it's very rare that two fighters are going against each other that have so much experience of being in there with one another. So for me, looking at this one, it's who can make the adjustments based on the first two fights to win. I think if you were looking at the first two fights, percentage-wise, DC's definitely won a larger percentage of both fights if you were looking at them as a whole. So I sort of went back and tried to work out why it was that Cormier was giving Stipe so many problems. Because I'll be honest, in the first fight, I was really surprised with the result. Because
me too. I was there.
Stipe, you were there?
Yeah, I went.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Insane. Yeah. Like, it was so crazy just because, like, it started and Miocic just seemed unstoppable, right? And whilst everyone knew just how good Cormier was at heavyweight, and they knew that he had power at heavyweight, they knew that he could wrestle a lot better, his gas tank was better, he didn't have the weight cut, all that stuff. Like, it just seemed like you had somebody that had good takedown defense, had really good boxing, was longer, taller. And me going into that arena that night, I was like, it's going to be a good fight, but I can imagine Stipe will take it, right? And we also knew that Cormier's left side was vulnerable. Jones capitalized on it. And whilst I didn't expect Miocic to head kick him, I thought a left hook could be there. And then, yeah, like they were clinching a little bit and Daniel seemed to be landing and that dirty boxing style. And then all of a sudden there was just a fucking dirty shovel punch. And I was like, oh, God damn.
Yeah. So that goes on to the first big thing really for me was that obviously Stipe just come off the back of fighting Francis Ngannou. So you're watching that and you're like, well, if he was going to get knocked out, he was going to get knocked out by Ngannou. But then really looking, especially that second fight, at what it is that Cormier does, I think that matchup-wise, he's a terrible matchup for Stipe for a few reasons. I think that if you look at the opponents that Stipe sort of built his legacy on against the heavyweights, so if we're looking at Junior Dos Santos the second time, Overeem, or Francis Ngannou, the point with those guys is they're all very powerful punchers, but they're quite long punches as well. So if you look at Dos Santos, like Ngannou especially, they're going to hit you at full extension from a distance and knock you out. Like even when Ngannou's throwing hooks in close, like against Rosenstruck, he's still got very extended arms and he's still hitting you with fully stretched arms. Whereas, you know, you got Cormier, he's like the complete antithesis of that sort of style, you know. Not only does he not throw fully extended punches, but he throws like half punches. Like he's halfway between a grab and a clinch and he'll throw out like half a jab or, you know, half an overhand right. But it's so surprising it comes without telegraph that Stipe really struggles because even though Ngannou's a lot more powerful, I feel like that wind-up, Stipe was good enough to sort of slip on the outside and do a good job. But it's that inside the pocket, clinch boxing, and like those very compact uppercuts and hooks that DC throws that just gives Stipe fits. And I think in the first fight, he didn't even think it was coming at all, so it just put him out completely. And then the second fight, I think he was trying his best to make adjustments, but he still struggled. And then obviously at the end of that fight, which is what makes it interesting for me going into the third, he started switching to that left hook to the body, which is an in-close technique. You know, if you look at most of Stipe's game, he works behind a nice long jab. He's got a really nice long straight right hand as well. But it was that shift to the left hook to the body and the body attack in general, which I think coming back this time, he has to invest in the body early, you know.
Yep.
Anderson Silva, I think years ago, was the first one that sort of exposed that Achilles heel in Cormier. And the guys that have really gone to town with it, like if you look at both John Jones fights, he is going early and often to the body right off the bat, you know. And obviously, even if you don't hurt Cormier there, something I've noticed watching him is that even if you don't hurt him, it'll open up strikes to the head against Cormier. So the minute he went low, talking about Stipe here, opened up that really nice cross that he has. So yeah, that's like a couple of things, especially from the striking, which I found interesting. But the biggest thing is who can go in learning those lessons and who can make the adjustments.
So as usual, an unnormally long bit of prose there from Mr. Maguinness.
It's a big fight.
It is a big
I'm very
fight.
excited about this one.
Tommy, what are your thoughts?
To be honest, I've only watched the first of Stipe Cormier fight.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I agree with what Sean was saying. That Stipe is kind of used to fighting from a longer range, but I think the accumulation of eye pokes definitely played a big factor as well.
That was going to be my point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He took a page out of John Jones' book, started going yonk yonk yonks, and that definitely played a factor. I can't remember which eye exactly, but it's going to be harder for him to see shots over the top. It's going to be, and then of course on top of the clinching, just kind of where he got clipped and eventually finished. So yeah, I didn't really watch the second fight properly, so I'm yet to have a full opinion on that.
Excuse necessarily, but I thought the rubber match was important, and it was the second match was important, and it was important to see what would happen without the eye pokes, right? And like Sean said, Stipe invested in the body, and that's really smart because look, I really think DC is probably a welterweight fighter stuck in a heavyweight's body, right? Like a welterweight, middleweight fighter that just likes Popeyes too much. Fine, these things happen, right? These things do happen in MMA. But in the same vein, I think investing in that body is a real weakness for Cormier. That body is a real weakness. And the thing that I find interesting on the Cormier side, however, is I think leg kicks are going to be important for Cormier. I think leg kicks are range finders, and leg kicks will mean that Stipe won't be able to sit in on that right hand. He won't be able to lunge in on that long jab. He's going to, of course he will be, but it won't be the same effect if his legs are beaten up. It's going to give him something else to think about. If he throws a leg kick and he tries to check it, well, then the single leg is there for DC. His leg's already off the ground, right? The base is off. I think investment in leg kicks is going to be really interesting. And DC now has spoken at large about how, he'll cover that left side, he'll cover that body shot, he'll cover that stuff. Will he? I don't know. John Jones told him that he was going to hit him with a left high kick for 8 months, and then what happened? He hit him with a left high kick. Like, I think the thing that I'm going to struggle with in this is they're both the fighters they're going to be at this point. You're not going to see new wrinkles. You're not going to see DC go for an Imanari roll in the fourth round when Eddie Bravo screams from the stands. Like, it's just not going to happen, right?
That would be amazing.
It would be fucking... Imagine. Like, you're not going to see... You're not going to see Miocic do a Vadum and run out with a jump sidekick. Like, it's just not going to happen. What we're going to see...
He's not tall enough. That's just not good. He's so little.
He is tall enough against fucking Gollum. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think this fight, the reason why this fight is really interesting to me is it reminds me a little bit of Holloway and Volkanovski. What we saw in the second Holloway-Volkanovski fight is the changes that both fighters made. Holloway in the first 2 rounds, Volkanovski from 3 to 5. And that was beautiful. And I'll be really interested to see what happens here in this fight. Now, Tommy, have you got any final thoughts, or can we move to picks?
It depends on whether the fight gets finished or not. I think the longer the fight goes, I think it was going to go to Stipe in terms of we'll go to the conclusions and like what the predictions are in a sec. So I'll come to that too. But I think the longer the fight goes, it's going to go into Stipe's favor.
I agree.
I think if anything, Cormier is going to if Cormier wins, he's going to catch him early. But yeah, we'll get into the predictions in a sec.
All right, Sean, hit me with your prediction, please.
Right, yeah, I think the smart money is probably on Cormier. But I agree with you. I think the book's written on both of them at this point. But I'd probably argue that Cormier there's less chance of him making a big adjustment before the fight, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to go with my gut on this one, go with Stipe with a unanimous decision.
Okay, Tommy?
Yep, I'll probably agree with that as well. Of course, I want DC to win, but I think Stipe is going to potentially finish him in the later rounds or score a unanimous decision as well, winning probably like three out of the 5 rounds, maybe 4 rounds, depending on how the fight goes. But either gets finished in the later rounds or a decision.
So I'm going to say fuck both of you. I think we're going to see Rose Namajunas is going to come into the corner and is going to scream Thug DC as he obliterates Stipe into Rose Ed. Nah, I mean, honestly, I think what's going to happen, to be honest, is I think the way that Cormier stops those body shots is either by catching the kick and using his wrestling, or it's going to be by allowing Stipe to throw that long left hook and either rolling in with it, taking the shot in and using that to come in with his wrestling, or it's just going to be to wrestle him, right? DC is a phenomenal pressure fighter. If he pressures Stipe and gets into the cage, I think we can see some vintage Daniel Cormier. And I think you're both right. I think the game plan is written. And of course, Stipe is amazing at fighting off his back foot. But I think DC takes it. And I think DC is going to win a unanimous decision. So, yeah, fuck both of you, basically. So we'll move on, and we will move on to... I could not believe that this was co-main event. Couldn't believe it. Sean O'Malley, Marlon Vera, co-main event. Mad.
I guess Sean O'Malley's got a lot of hype behind him, so...
Yeah, over... Sorry?
Would you put it lower?
Yes.
I'm not sure, you know. I think I agree with Tommy. Like, there's a lot of hype behind Sean.
And this card is, apart from the media,
sorry, where they just want to build him up at this point, you know, so you've got to give him those big fights, you know, on big spots of the card, because if he wins big, like, his stock multiplies like exponentially, but it wouldn't multiply anywhere near as much if they had him like headlining a prelim or something. I
mean, I agree and I disagree. I think main card's a good thing, right? But I mean, you've got JDS and Jairzinho Rozenstruik in there. Look, Jairzinho Rozenstruik got smashed to pieces by Ngannou. These things happen, okay?
Yeah, it just touches you and you fall. But
man, if Francis Ngannou got in the cage and stamped on the floor, I'd just lie down. I'm done. It's okay. I'm fine. Like, it's okay, right? JDS, I mean, okay, JDS has taken some losses recently. That's fine. I understand that. You know, I think he's on a 3 losing streak now, is he? 2 losing streak. Yeah. Francis and Blades. Yeah, Francis and Blades. But before then, like, he knocks out Taito Avasa. He beats Blagoy-Ivanov, which is you can't finish Blagoy-Ivanov. You just can't. That man's been stabbed in his chest twice. Doesn't happen, right? You can't finish that motherfucker. And then he finishes what's his name? Derek Lewis. Thank you. Finishes Derek Lewis as well, right? And it's like
the best blue belt in Texas.
Literally the best blue belt in Texas, right? Like, Jesus Christ! Imagine you go to a Naga, yeah, and Derek Lewis steps on the mat.
I'm not in that absolute division.
What do? You can't pull guard on that motherfucker. You can't pull guard on that. He cuts weight to 265. No, it's not for me. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I would have put JDS Jairzinho Rozenstruik here, because that's one fight away from a title shot, in my opinion. They were building Rozenstruik to be that next title contender. The heavyweight division is so slim right now. Gustafsson comes in, gets armbarred by Doom. That's that hype train gone in heavyweight. You've then got Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think if Jairzinho Rozenstruik wins this, you do him versus Gustafsson. If either one of those win, you put them in a...
No, then wouldn't it be Verdum versus Rozenstruik?
His contract's finished. He's out of the UFC. He's done.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, so I would do Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Gustafsson. It's a striking matchup. It's a cool matchup. It's nice. Jairzinho Rozenstruik can use his kickboxing experience. If he gets a nice knockout, great. If not, Gustafsson hype train. Everyone will forget to do him. It is what it is. But anyway, we'll get into the O'Malley fight anyway. So, I mean, both of you may disagree with me here, but I'm also not entirely sold on Sean O'Malley. I think that he is an excellent striker, but there are holes to hit him. He is hittable. If Eddie Wineland can crack you, and I know Sean, Eddie Wineland, let's not get into it because Jack will kill both of us.
Yeah.
But Eddie Wineland is washed up. Like, at this point, Eddie Wineland is washed up, right?
He is. He's fought in WC. He's fought forever, so...
Exactly. But
they pretty much that was a stepping stone to push him in the limelight and make him look really good.
agree. And of course, the finish was phenomenal. Let's not get away from it. The finish was phenomenal. But there were moments in that fight where Eddie managed to find Sean, and it's happened in his other matches as well, in his other fights as well. I think that this is his first real test, and I'll be very, very interested to see what happens here. Now, I went back and watched some of the Marlon Vera fights, right? And the thing that struck me about Vera is a couple of things. He is incredibly hittable, right? He is happy to take 3 shots to land 1. What he also does is in the last couple of fights, he's made really good adjustments in learning how to make reads. So the thing that impressed me the most about the 3 fights that he's been in, Song Yadong, it's fine. Song Yadong's got hands of stone, didn't get finished. That's fine. It is what it is. You lose a decision. I got no problem with that. The thing that impressed me the most was Andre Ewell, right? So in the first round against Andre Ewell, he gets clipped with a left hand twice, right? 2 left hooks gets clipped. Next time, he sees it coming. He sees the setup. Andre Ewell feints his right hand, throws a left hook. Vera ducks under the left hook and wraps up a head and arm choke as a counter to a left hook, takes him down with it. Now, he doesn't finish the head and arm choke, right? Ewell actually reverses guard, and then Marlon Vera wraps him up in rubber guard and starts landing shots. But to be as unorthodox as, what school of MMA is going to teach you to counter a left hook with a head and arm choke?
Alexis Olenek's school,
Well, yeah, maybe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a good school as well.
Shut your fucking mouth.
Ezekiel's.
Full mount.
Maybe we should call him Ezekiel Eagles. But, it's just so unorthodox. And I saw it and I was like, that's incredible. Like, has he just thought about that? Or has that just come to his mind or what? But the read to see the left hook and then to think, okay, I'm going to counter it with something, right? That is going to be interesting. He's incredibly durable. Never been finished in his career. 6 losses, 6 decision losses. No sub losses, no knockouts. Now, Sean has obviously invested a lot of time into his jiu-jitsu. We've seen that. Do I think he's going to take it to the ground against Marlon Vera? Maybe. I think that would be a bad decision, though. Unless Marlon's tired and hurt, I probably wouldn't go to the ground with Vera. What we've seen is of his 15 wins, we've got 8 submissions. That's a decent submission rate. He's got a really good rear naked choke, and he's got a couple of guillotines on his record as well. So you don't really want to be shooting in a double leg or against the fence in case you get guillotined. And equally, if he manages to get on your back, you've got a lot of problems. I do think that O'Malley will win this fight, and we'll get into my prediction a little bit later. But I think that what's going to happen here is Vera has to dictate the rhythm. He has to be able to break the rhythm of O'Malley, because if O'Malley can move in and out, move laterally, and land the shots he wants to land, it's going to be a very, very long night for Marlon Vera. The one thing that Vera doesn't do is cut off the cage very well. He follows. And that is a serious problem against somebody like Sean O'Malley. So, what we've seen from O'Malley so far is incredible knockouts, wheel kicks, sniper right hands. He's got that little bit of an air of Conor McGregor in that he throws the one shot, and when he's thrown it, he knows he doesn't need to land anymore. Like, it's done. So, yeah, but it's an interesting fight. Tommy, what's your thoughts?
I think Sean O'Malley's going to use Marlon Vera as another stepping stone.
Interesting.
And I'm on the Sugar Show hype train, so.
Are you wearing that T-shirt because of Sugar Show? Is that what this is?
No, 100% not. I dyed my hair if I was. So.
Just all rainbow.
I mean, do you not? I don't know. Sean, what do you think? Are you with me or not?
No, I think you're completely fair to think that it may be a little bit too early to jump on the Sean O'Malley bandwagon, because even though he looked impressive, he's looked the way a rising contender should against the competition that he's faced, right? So, if you look at the last couple of names that he's been through, this is the first name that he's really going against that breaks him into the rankings. And, just to piggyback on a few things that you said there, I think that Marlon Vera is a really good test at that level to sort of go through. Even though I agree with you, Vera's hittable, just as O'Malley is. I think he's hittable in the same way someone like Peter Yan's hittable. So when it
put some fucking respect on Peter Yan's name. How dare you?
Yeah, but just hear me out. So when he's like really trying to shut the ring off, or the cage off to sort of put some pressure on, he'll usually, once he gets more confident about the guy's power, and this is usually second or third round, he'll put himself into that shell and he'll like try and take things on the forehead to get a sense of what's going on in the pocket. Like for this one, I watched his fights against John Lineker and who was the other one? Oh yeah, and then Song Yudong. You know, two very powerful punchers, not loads of people out. And the first round, he usually stays quite far away. He doesn't come forward very much at all. And then the second round, the more rhythm he gets, like I say, he'll shut people off, but he'll put himself into that defensive shell to get a sense of how hard they're punching. And, you know, if he gets a sense it's not much, like Song Yudong, he'll start pouring the pressure on then, and then you get, you know, he's in crazy trades and stuff like that. So I think a big part of this is they're probably going to meet in the first round. And unless Sean, you know, pulls off some crazy knockout, I don't think a whole lot is going to happen necessarily in that first round. And then if it gets to the second or third, then I think it gets really interesting, because that's usually when Vera sort of turns it on. But another thing you were saying just real quick about the grappling, I think both of these guys, I couldn't see them purposefully taking it to the mat. I think they're both very like opportunistic grapplers, especially Vera. Like, he'll choke you, but he'll choke you after he drops you with a strike, or if you shot in, you know, a really bad takedown. He doesn't usually force the issue and push guys up against the fence and take them down there. And the things we've seen of Sean, we've not seen much grappling in MMA, but when he competed on that quintet a while ago, he's very similar. Like, most of his stuff comes off the counter, and it's very like opportunistic and sneaky. So the only way I think the grappling comes into this is if one of them gets hurt, and then, you know, the other one sort of jumps on that to get further ahead.
To be honest with you, and I'll go to Tommy in a second, I think if Vera does take this first round like he usually does, it's a really, really bad night for him. Because what's going to happen is O'Malley will throw so many feints at him, and he'll make so many reads, and he'll get into some form of rhythm that unless Vera really does something crazy in the second or third, I think the first round is really crucial for Vera, to be honest. Vera needs to put a stamp in some fashion to either make O'Malley respect his power, maybe shoot in some takedowns. And I know, as you've said, he's not a progressive grappler, shall we say, where he looks for that. He's going to find it if you give it to him. But in the same vein, like I think O'Malley is dangerous if you get him started. If you allow him to get started, he's dangerous. And I think Vera, if he follows the game plan and the habits that you've already said, I think it's going to be a long night for him. Tommy, any final thoughts?
I think this fight, you might get a glimpse of, you get to see a glimpse of how Sean O'Malley's grappling is going to be. I think Marlon Vera is going to be forced to take, or at least try to take him down at one point. I think I agree. And I mean, regardless of how good your training partners are, I know just because you train with good people, it doesn't mean you're good at grappling. I know Sean O'Malley trains with Tanquinho, who's a good grappler himself.
Good grappler.
I think
Tanquinho, imagine.
I think Sean O'Malley is going to have good counter wrestling and unorthodox submissions from there. He looks like the kind of guy who likes darces and Kimura traps from people trying to take him down.
Yep.
I think Sean O'Malley's going to get the TKO finish. And
TKO finish. Okay. So what's your official prediction then? We'll go to official predictions as you start.
Oh yeah.
Sean, you're going TKO. Tommy, you're going TKO. What round?
Yep. Probably the mid-second round. Sean O'Malley finish or walk-off finish if it gets to that. But I think a TKO.
Finish. Jesus.
Since Marlon Vera is pretty tough, so I think a TKO from there.
Sean, are you picking your namesake or not?
It's just so hard, isn't it? Because Marlon Vera has never been finished. So if Sean did walk out and do that, I'd have to be like, hold my hands up and be like, okay, we've got a serious prospect right here. But I don't know whether it's you taking me off the hype train, Harry, but for some reason I've lost a lot of faith in Sean right now. So I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley, split decision.
Wow, split decision. You fucking hate Sean O'Malley. All right, I see it.
I'm all on board for the rainbow hair. I'm so bad for jumping on hype trains that I'm worried that I've done it again.
So I am going to pick Sean O'Malley, but I'm going to pick him via unanimous decision. I think that the safe money here is, look, as you mentioned, John Lineker, incredibly powerful puncher, right? Song Yudong is powerful, but he's also extremely accurate. whereas John Lineker isn't accurate. He just throws the Rio de Janeiro hands at you and sees what happens, right? Sean is way more accurate than he is powerful, in my opinion. He's like a sniper. Now, I can see Sean landing often and plenty. I just can't see him finishing Vera. I think he's too tough and too durable. And as you say, he has a really nice walking shell where he'll carry on. And then I agree with Tommy. I think takedowns are going to be a big part of this. And we're going to see whether Sean O'Malley has that takedown defense and what his grappling is like, I think. But yeah, I'm going to take Sean O'Malley by unanimous decision. All right. So the next matchup is JDS. I can't believe he's still fighting. And Josino Rosenstruck. So, Tommy, take us away.
So, we've got JDS and Rosenstruck. Of course, they're both coming off loss. JDS actually 2 losses, Francis and Curtis Blades, and Rosenstruck with Francis, which had that freak knockout. He just started charging at him with long punches and finished him there. But that also happens because you're fighting Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this fight's pretty straightforward. Rosenstruck's a really good kickboxer, a really good counter striker, and I've seen a couple fights. So the one, I think JDS versus Francis Ngannou, he was lunging a lot. I think since he lost the second fight to Cain Velasquez, JDS has been the same. And I think it's pretty straightforward that he's gonna try to box on the outside for a bit, eventually overextend and get a counter strike from Rosenstruck and eventually get finished. That's how I was going to see it. Of course, Rosenstruck has fought a couple good guys in the past. He was as you mentioned earlier, he was en route to getting a title shot right before. Of course. Before he lost to Francis, he fought Overeem, which Overeem was winning the fight, to be honest.
Yeah,
he was taken down.
Absolutely was.
He was getting. But that it showed how tough he was and how much power Ngannou actually has. Even regardless of what technique he does, he just charges at you, hits you, you fall.
Agree.
So I think Rosenstruck's a bit too tough. His striking is going to be cleaner, and he's going to probably finish JDS. And JDS needs to retire. I know he was in a three fight winning streak before his last 2 losses, but I think he's on a downward slope of his career and should retire as well.
So I agree with Tommy. I will only add one thing. I think it's relatively straightforward if Dos Santos chooses not to grapple, right? And the reason
there is that.
The reason why I say that is I think Dos Santos' grappling is quite underrated. I think he has good takedown defense, but good jiu-jitsu when it gets there. The Rosenstruck thing that is just so impressive to me is on his bio, they say he's 6'2". That man is not 6'2", right?
Yeah, he doesn't look 6'2" anyway.
Way smaller than that, right? But this guy has had 85 kickboxing fights. He's won 76 and 64 by knockout. And all of these are in the heavyweight division. And you look at the guys you've got in heavyweight, Badr Hari, Rico Verhoeven, like these kind of guys. These are monstrous men. And he's just
but he never fought. He didn't really fight the big names, did he?
No, he didn't.
In kickboxing.
Still, a kickboxing record of 84 wins. 85 matches, 76 wins, and 64 knockouts against heavyweights is still impressive. And I think Tommy's assumption here is really, really promising. JDS is known for his boxing, right? But you're going against a supreme kickboxer here, a supreme counter striker who, as you rightly said, obliterated Alistair Overeem's lip with such a beautiful check left hook. And I mean, okay, Overeem has been finished maybe 1,000 times in his career at this point, right? But still, to put him away is still impressive. And I agree with you. Curtis Blades finishes you. Francis Ngannou finishes you. Okay, it is what it is. But, Stipe's finished you. Alistair Overeem's finished you. Cain Velasquez has finished you. Like, yeah, these are knockouts that are going to do a lot of damage. And I think I agree with you at this point. If JDS chooses not to grapple, it's going to be a long night. Sean?
Yeah, it's. I think this is a tough one for Junior, to be honest. Like, I think you're both right. I think he's definitely on the downward slope of his career. And also, what's always sort of concerned me about him is he has probably been part of one of the worst, single beatdowns, over the course of 2 fights. But him and Cain was awful. Like, I can't think of many fights off the top of my head where
there's only one
got that badly beaten.
There's only one.
What's that?
Tommy? What's the worst beatdown than Kane and Junior? Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold.
Maybe at the end, but that was still
at
quite
the
back
end.
and forth before that.
Oh my
Yeah,
god!
till he
I don't know.
decided to do throw
Saying,
spinning shit.
It
He
was just
didn't
a
really.
mauling from start to finish, like all the way through.
That I watched that when because Chris Weidman obviously fought the other day, right? I watched that Luke Rockhold fight again, and honestly, it gave me nightmares. It was, oh my god, disgusting.
Rough.
So rough.
But yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Like, he's definitely on the downward slog. And there was a couple of things during that win streak he was on that looked pretty good. Like, he's always had a really nice overhand right. But I think the thing that's different between him and Rosenstruik is that, Junior will throw something really, really hard, and he'll usually hit you somewhere and put you out. Whereas Rosenstruik is about as calculated as you get as a striker. Like, when he lands, he really knows that the person's out before they've even hit the floor.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be a big difference going into this one. I think the key to victory for either guy is neither of these guys are very good on the back foot. That was something in the Ngannou fight, especially with Rosenstruik, that really surprised me, in that when he gets bull rushed, so much of his counter punching just sort of fades away.
Let's be
fair.
And
I know don't get me wrong, it's a tough ass. Like, Francis Ngannou's bad for anyone. But I suppose the overall point being, Junior Dos Santos has never been a swarming fighter. He's always been a guy that picks you off at a distance. And I just think for two guys that work in that middle range, I just think Rosenstruik's a lot better. And also, even though he's had his own knockouts in kickboxing, I'd still argue he's probably the fresher out of both in terms of his career at the moment.
I agree. I think, let's just put this into perspective, right? Before the Alistair Overeem fight, knocked out Junior Albini in the second round, finished Alan Crowder in 9 seconds, finished Andrei Arlovski in 29 seconds, then finishes Alistair Overeem with 4 seconds left of the fight in the 5th round. So we know he's got a gas tank. We know he can take a lick if it's not Francis Ngannou. And then you've got somebody like JDS, right, who, as Tommy really, I think that point from Tommy was so important, is Junior leans and he overcommits to those strikes. And you overcommit to that strike, and Jairzinho Rosenstruik is going to knock you the fuck out. So, I mean, I think it's probably relatively pivotal. It's relatively simple for us to make our picks. But, Tommy, if you can give me your pick for this one, please. To
be honest, if Junior Dos Santos does make some adjustments, just because he's been finished in the past 2 fights, I think he may be a bit more gun shy. He's not going to come out as guns blazing. Of course, he got knocked out in the past 2, and he's aware that Rosenstruik has power. He can win. I think a 3-round decision. It's going to be a boring fight if Junior Dos Santos wins. But ultimately, I do see Rosenstruik getting the finish, unfortunately, because I still am a very big JDS fan, and
of course, legend.
But I think sometimes a lot of the fighters on this card, especially, need to hang up the gloves. So hopefully Junior gets the win, but I think Rosenstruik's going to get the job done first, second round, third round, whatever round, but probably first round, I'd say.
So I'm going to put you down for a first round KO. Sean?
KO, TKO.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with a third round TKO, just because I think that Rosenstruik is coming off a pretty awful knockout loss himself, so I couldn't imagine him, going in with the same confidence. But then again, maybe that's what 85 kickboxing fights gives you,
Yeah, I agree. I just want to preface, I do think that if JDS chooses to grapple, this could be a long night for Rosenstruik, right? But again, we've not seen JDS grapple in a long time. So we can't, without being forced to grapple. So I'm not sure that will be the case. So we'll move on to the incredible fight of Magomed Ankalaev and Ion Cutelaba, which is no longer happening. So we'll just skip right past it. And we'll go to, as soon as this card came up, Sean texted me immediately saying, please, can I have this fight? So if everyone wants to get a sleeping bag and a pillow, because as soon as I mention this, we're going to be in this.
Preface it with that, Harry.
And
what's
Sean's going to be talking for the next 57 minutes about John Dodson and Merab Dvalishvili. Sean, take it away, sir.
Harry, I won't be speaking anywhere near that long. Don't be silly, all right? But I am massively keen on this one. I think it's a really interesting matchup. You obviously got like Merab, who's a really decent wrestler. Like I think he's got titles in Sambo as well. And he's had quite an interesting sort of transition to MMA, especially training with the Long Island team. You know, the best corner guys, definitely, or the most entertaining corner guys in history for sure.
There you go.
Yeah, but then he's against
Even
John
more-
Dodson, who
Even more entertaining than Edmund Tarverian.
I'd say more. To be honest, that's too painful for me. It sort of strays out of the realm of humour into something a little bit more sad. So I don't find that. As funny, but yeah. John Dodson though, I think he's a really difficult matchup for Merab. For a few different reasons. I think Merab's like quite hot-headed and he sort of blitzes in quite a lot. And if there's any type of fighter that Dodson's made a career of causing upsets over, it's hot-headed guys that run in quite early. Like if you're looking at TJ Dillashaw, if you're looking at his last win against Nathaniel Wood, I think some people, yeah, exactly. Like some people feel quite comfortable in there with him because they just see this guy that's sort of moving laterally quite a lot, and then he'll just catch people on the way in, and you know his power's translated quite well up the weight class. What I will say for Merab is that one statistic loads of people use for him all the time is that he has like a crazy takedown record. Like he gets loads of takedowns per fight, which I think is sometimes it's a good and a bad thing. Because it's like as much as you're showing you've got the stamina or gas tank to get these takedowns, the issue that goes with that is obviously you're not holding the guy down. And I think for me, my concern with Merab, especially like early on in his UFC career, is he will get the best takedowns ever, like DC type high crotches where he's slamming guys, but they'd be up 3 seconds later, and meanwhile he's getting more and more tired. Where in relation to Dodson, you can't be going out with a game plan that gasses you out like that with takedowns, because he will capitalize. And Dodson in his own right has really good takedown defense. I don't think you're going to get the first takedown on Dodson. You've got to do what Mighty Mouse did, where you go in, you keep the grappling exchanges up, you don't use too much energy, and just keep going and keep going and keep going until Dodson fades and then really does the work. I think if you rush anything with Dodson, you know, he can cause a big upset, basically. But yeah, it's a cool matchup for sure.
Okay, I mean, I think before I pass it over to Tommy, I think if I ever hear somebody reference a matchup as cool, I'm probably just going to destroy them instantly and just ban them from the podcast forever. But
You're
Tommy,
ban me.
Tommy,
It's escalated so quickly.
I mean, look, we've got Head Arm Instructional. You're denying your roots of being born and raised in Manchester, England, and now you're describing matchups as cool. Like, come the fuck on,
mate. It is the first word that came into my mind when I saw this was cool.
That's very cool.
That was really cool.
Fuck's sake. Tommy, what do you think?
I haven't extensively watched. How do you even pronounce his name? Merab
Devashvili.
Yes, him. But just hearing briefly from Sean, being a takedown artist and whatnot, I think John Dodson moves so much that he's hard to even enter. Like it's hard to even close the distance with him. He has some decent power when you start coming in and rushing as well. I think John Dodson's had a lot of hard fights. He's lost to Peter Yan, he's lost to Jimmy Rivera, Marlon Moraes. There's quite a few big names up there. I think based on what I know about John Dodson, because I know he has way more fights in the UFC and I've watched way more of his fights. I think this isn't going to be too difficult of a matchup for him, just because of what I know from Dodson. I don't know the guy so well, but yeah, just based on what I know about John Dodson, who's a really cool dude. So yeah.
Sean is so salty. As soon as you said, I think this is a relatively easy matchup, Sean literally just wiped a tear away from his eye. Like I saw it. Like
just a small tear, just
like
in time for the camera not to see it.
So I think in a way, this actually is. I think Tommy has a point, right? And the reason I think Tommy has a point is if you look at the recent losses for John Dodson, DJ twice. Look, arguably one of the greatest fighters ever, if not the greatest fighter ever. Marlon Moraes, Jimmy Rivera, Peter Yan. These are all elite level fighters. Okay, he slipped up against John Lineker and he's trash, but that's fine. Like,
John Lineker's not trash. He's tough. I remember the John Lineker John Dodson fight because he pretty much did a just hands up, charged in, kind of backed John Dodson up. I don't remember him cutting angles too much. I remember backing him up and just throwing big shots, and it wasn't that great. But that's beside the point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Fuck John Lineker.
John Lineker is an icon. What are we talking about here? Why is he being? I need Jack back. This is absolute bullshit.
Mate.
I can't believe the spin you're putting on his career.
Jack,
he
you can stay
dominated
at work,
from
mate.
start to finish.
You can. Yeah, that's why I got a fucking split
Just
decision.
like
Get the
every
fuck
time,
out of
mate.
here. Get the fuck out of here.
That's also
Anyway.
why he's not. Yep.
Yeah, that's why he's in one championship.
I was about to say,
Scrubs.
yeah, he's not in the UFC anymore. You know?
Fuck you, Sean. Like,
He goes
basically,
where the money is. He can go wherever he wants.
what
That
is
is
that?
true.
Is that because
Wherever
one
he
championship has
wants.
17 billion followers? If
Really?
we're reading, no, bro, there's not even 17 billion people on the planet. What the fuck's your problem?
Wow.
Like, oh, Jesus.
It's
The
very
joke,
hard at the moment, Harry.
the joke is lost on you, Sean. Yeah, I mean, my point here is that Dodson only really loses to the elite of the division, right? And I don't think that Merab is the elite of the division yet. I think your point, Sean, is really important. Having 18 takedowns in a 3-round fight is great. Why is it not 3 takedowns? 3 takedowns, 0 mat returns. If you're like, how many takedowns does Habib have in a fight? Unless it's against, what's his fucking name?
Abel Trio.
Thank you. Where he just, Abel Trujillo
Oh,
just kept getting back up, kept getting the double unders, kept getting back up, and Habib was like, "Cool, bro, I'm just going to put you back down again." Fine. Like these things happen. But look, against guys that Merab has been fighting with, like Brad Katona, decent fighter, but just picks him up, puts him back down. Gustavo Lopez picks him up, puts him back down. Like, these guys aren't guys that are amazing names yet. You should be able to hold these guys down if that's your game. And I think the key to beating Dodson is DJ, right? So what did they do? They pressure him always. Dodson moves laterally. You cut the cage off. You mix in strikes, wrestling, clinch work, ground game, everything. It has to be a blend. Nathaniel Wood was doing really well in that fight until he wasn't, right? But what was happening was, he didn't have enough. He didn't have enough to mix up. He didn't have enough to mix in, right? And Nathaniel Wood will come back and it'll be fine. But I do think this is a tough fight for Merab. I really, really do. If he keeps putting Dodson down, fine. We've seen Dodson gas in the past, but I just can't see it. Sean, as this is your love child of a fight, a cool fight, what's your cool decision?
Just one more thing for Merab. All right. One thing I know won't happen in this fight is Merab will not lose by guillotine. I can't remember which fight it is
Ricky
now,
Simon.
but that
Ricky
guy
Simon.
has the most insanely resistant neck I've ever seen of anyone, like jiu-jitsu, MMA, anything. That was one of the craziest ends to a fight ever.
He was out for a little
Simon.
second though. Ricky Simon, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the guy with the mullet, right?
Yeah, the guy that beat Uriah Faber.
Yeah.
That Merab was out for a little minute though.
Yeah, no, but I mean, he sat in a fully locked-in guillotine for 20 seconds. That's not how it works, or it shouldn't be anyway. But yeah, I just think that's awesome. But I think it's cool. A bad matchup.
I think it's cool. I don't think it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool as well.
Cool.
You're hilarious, Harry. But yeah, I think that Dodson's going to win. I do think this is a rough matchup for Merab, and I think that because he is such a maniac, he is just going to end up sort of how it's going to be like TJ Dillashaw versus Dodson, I think. So I'll go with a TKO in the second round from Dodson.
That's it.
I think John Dodson is going to win a 3-round decision. I don't really know Merab too much, but I've seen that he hasn't been finished by strikes. I don't think he's going to get guillotined either. So it's going to be a 3-round decision with John Lineker moving a lot, tagging him here and there, and pretty much it. It's going to be a unanimous decision for John Dodson.
I think I agree with Tommy. I think Merab is tough, right? Look, his training partners are Aljamain Sterling, Marlon Moraes, Frankie Edgar, these people, right? These are guys that hit really hard. I mean, maybe not Frankie, but Marlon and Aljamain, they hit really hard. And Aljamain has a really awkward style. Frankie's gas tank's really good. I think he'll be prepared for this kind of fight. But I don't think he's going to have enough to finish. I don't think he's got the array of either the array of tools or the depth in one skill set to beat a guy like Dodson. And I think Dodson will win the unanimous decision. I was going to say Dodson via guillotine just for the meme, but I just can't see it. Like I just can't see it.
You just can't. It's so unrealistic. You just can't even joke about it.
Yeah. So we'll move on to legend of the sport, Jim Miller and Vink Pichel. Tommy, take us away.
So Jim Miller, this one's pretty interesting or cool if you wish. Jim Miller had 32 wins, 14 losses, and 1 no contest. So he's fought a lot of times, almost 50 fights in his career, and he's been fighting since 2005. So he's had his wins and losses, but I think he's a very solid gatekeeper. Number one, Jim Miller. He's always been really good with his submissions. I think even when he was a brown belt, he was already tapping a lot of. Was he a brown belt at the time? I remember him fighting. What's his name? Fabricio Camoves. That was the one. I remember seeing it. I know this was in 2013, and then it was like, oh, this guy's a 3rd degree black belt. Oh, he's really good. He's not going to get submitted, and Jim Miller submitted him from there. But Jim Miller's overall game is pretty solid. He has good wrestling. His striking's pretty underrated, I'd say. His power's also a bit underrated too. So he's always dangerous with his hands and his submissions. Most of his submissions come from his hands, like knocking people down.
Yes, exactly.
He takes the back. He chokes people from there, or sometimes he does go for takedowns as well. And he eventually gets the finish or whatever. How many people has he lost to? So he's lost a decision to Scott Holtzman, which I haven't watched. Charles Oliveira submitted him, but Vince Pichel is definitely not Charles Oliveira pedigree of grappling.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Hooker, he's also lost to Dan Hooker by KO, which Dan Hooker's of course really good, so there's no shame losing to Dan Hooker. So I think Vince Pichel is a pretty well-rounded fighter. He has quite a few TKOs in his record. He's fought decent guys. He also lost to Gregor Gillespie recently. In 2018. I think if you based upon losing to Gregor Gillespie, they're both really good wrestlers. They're both pretty good at submissions. I think Jim Miller is. I'll come to prediction in a sec, but I think Jim Miller is going to be a bit too much if the fight hits the ground. But if he doesn't, Vince Pichel can definitely do a lot of damage on the feet as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's interesting for me in this matchup is Vince took a long time off, right? So he made his UFC debut in 2012, and he got fucked by Rustam Khabilov.
Shit! Yes,
remember? Got suplexed on his head and then
punched. The back suplexes.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's that guy.
He's that guy.
I thought that guy was still there.
No. Khabilov just left him in the arena, like fuck him. So he's that guy, right? So Rustam Khabilov absolutely fucked that guy. And then he took 2 years off, and then from 2014 he beat Anthony Nunjukani, and then took another nearly 4 years off, right, before he came back. Beat Damian Brown. Damian Brown's a good fighter. Joaquin Silva, equally decent fighter. Gregor Gillespie, again, like it's tough. Because what we have to remember here is Vince Pichel's a striker, right? 12 wins, 8 knockouts. Like clearly he's a striker, right? He uses his hands. He's got a really good right hand. And, we saw that against Damian Brown, for instance, first round finish. Fine. Great result. The thing I have here, and the thing that I find really interesting, is they both fought Roosevelt Roberts, the 59th American president, in their in their last outing, right? Jim Miller armbarred him in a round, and if anyone remembers, Roosevelt Roberts rushed Jim Miller, hurt Jim Miller, and then Jim Miller went to ground, pulled guard, pulled an armbar out. Beautiful. Roosevelt Roberts then lost a 3-round decision to Vince Pichel. So, what I find is going to be interesting here is you've got Vince Pichel, who has been fighting a long time, made his debut in 2009, but doesn't have anywhere near the mileage that Jim Miller has. I think Miller has more than one way to win. I think as Tommy said, he's got good wrestling. He's got good striking. His power is underrated. He does drop guys and then chokes them. And obviously his submissions are super legit. I love Jim Miller. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. Like, he's just somebody that, he's been through everything. Lyme disease, a family, a full-time job, being an MMA fighter since 2005 when it wasn't cool to be an MMA fighter. and here he is. Like, he's never had a title shot. He's never had really a title run. He's always lost to the guys that are just about there or thereabouts. And here he is still taking fights. So, yeah. Sean, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like I don't have too much to add, to be honest. Like, I think, like you say, Jim Miller is one of those veterans that you root for just because you see him improve over time.
Yes.
Like, we were speaking, especially after his last fight, against someone that I was well on the hype train on way too early.
Yeah, he's not that cool anymore, is he?
No, he's not. He's out. But yeah, for Jim Miller, he has a really decent submission game, which I think has like developed quite a lot over time. And he's one of these guys where if he gets a guillotine, he's not just cranking on it, not knowing whether it's going to happen. He's very like assured in his technique. Like, I think I used this example last time, but him against Clay Guida, he had an arm in guillotine. And he looked like someone that knew he was going to put Clay Guida out if he didn't tap. And obviously, he ended up doing that. Vince Pichel, like, his fight with Roosevelt Roberts was good. I think it was an earlier Roosevelt Roberts, to be honest.
Oh,
and I think that his overall
making excuses. Making excuses.
It wasn't a prime Roosevelt. No one beats. I still think there was something wrong with him against Jim Miller. I can't have been that convinced. For no
he got his arm broken. That's what was wrong with him.
Oh, something's wrong with him now, isn't it? Yeah, but yeah, I think Jim Miller's just a better grappler overall, and I think this is one of the easiest picks for me, to be honest.
I agree. So let's go to those picks. Tommy, it was your matchup. So what's your pick?
It goes both ways. I think if Vince Pichel can kind of keep it standing, not get knocked down, not get taken down, he wins the decision. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I think Jim Miller is ultimately going to get the takedown, probably the takedown and a submission finish round 2 or 3, one of the later rounds.
Okay, so I'll give you a round 3 because you didn't seem that.
We'll say round 3.
I'll give you a round 3 sub. Sean, if you can give me the coolest prediction possible.
The coolest? All right, then. Well, I'm going for a very cool first round TKO from Jim Miller. Actually, first round sub, actually. But I think he batters him quite a bit before the sub. So if you want to add that in little air quotes, you can do.
So what we're doing is a battered sub.
A battered sub.
Yeah. So that, and we're also, Sean, if you could start a takeaway program where you go to Subway, buy a sandwich, and go to the fish shop and ask them to batter it.
Sounds like the chip shop. Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a Jim Miller sub as well, and I'm going to say in round 2. I think whilst I could easily see a first round finish here, I really could. If Vince Pichel rushes Jim Miller, then he's probably going to get subbed really quick. But if he's watched any of the last 3 of Jim Miller's wins, which have all been first round subs, he'll try to make it out of the first round, right, and then see what Jim's got. But I think ultimately I agree with you guys that he's going to get subs. So we will again move on, and we will go to Ashley Yoder versus Livian Souza. Sean, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting one. I think Livia Souza had quite a bit of sort of momentum behind her before she ran into Brianna Van Buren. I think that Livia, one of the things that made her look quite exciting coming in, especially if you're looking at fights like her against Alex Chambers, she's so aggressive and she was bull rushing people, and she seemed, like an opposing force, like someone that was going to sort of take the fight to you and win that way. Whereas Brianna just completely flipped the tables on her. A lot of the time she was pressuring Livia, and especially when she was going to the body and the head, which we'll get back to Ashley in a minute, because that's a real key to this one. Livia Souza did wilt under that pressure when the shoe was on the other foot. From Ashley Yoder's perspective, I think she's one of these girls that has been in the middle of that division for quite a while, and she's never been shut out necessarily. Like, even in fights against Mackenzie Dern, you know, you look at that, it's obviously a fight set up to build Mackenzie's name. And she didn't come out of that looking amazing, speaking about Mackenzie Dern, and Ashley Yoder put up a good fight. But I think for as skilled as she is, she's not had like a breakthrough performance. I think the good things in Ashley's sort of, in her skill set is she's southpaw, she's very long, she has like decent enough footwork, and once she gets confident, which is another thing, she has a lovely straight left. And when she goes to the body with that and changes it up to the head, you know, she keeps people guessing, and she usually lands a lot heavier when she does go to the head, which she'll have to do against Souza. My issue with Ashley, and this is a similar issue I think we're going to get to with Felice Herrig in a bit as well, is a hesitancy there. Like, she shows at certain points that she's very dangerous, you know. She shows at certain points that she is really skilled, but it's just a hesitancy there. And whether that's come from fighting dominant grapplers, like, let's be honest, with Mackenzie Dern, you can't make a mistake, you know, anytime you can't give up a takedown or whatever. Or whether it is just, you know, she's a little bit gun shy for whatever reason. She's going to have to get over that for this one, because if you don't sort of bring that pressure, or if you don't pressure Souza, she's going to pressure you, and, you know, it could end up pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the first time I actually saw Souza was against Brianna Van Buren. And Brianna Van Buren is obviously a decorated kickboxer, right? And coming from AKA, like, she obviously has all of the tools that you'd expect from an AKA fighter: pressure, good grappling, and some good striking, right? And when I saw that, I was like, ooh, like, this lady, as in Souza, has got some growing to do, because, you know, as we know, you're not always going to be the hammer. And then when I saw Brianna Van Buren against Tisha Torres, I was like, oh, okay, like, there's levels to this pressure kickboxing fight. And I think the other thing that's amazing about Brianna Van Buren is she's 4'11".
Really?
She's 4'11". Imagine.
That's like an inch off being a midget, right?
Right.
I thought that was the limit if you're a midget. I thought it was 4'11".
Depends on the country, I think. Some countries are like 4'10".
Clearly, Tommy is well adept in the laws of midgetry.
I was going to say, we should probably research that for important information.
Important information. But, you know, the thing that I find really impressive about Souza is Tommy is now Googling it furiously, as you can see. For those of you just listening, all you can see is Tommy like, shit.
Yeah, correct. So anything less than 4'10".
Okay.
Wow.
There you go.
People really learn important stuff listening to this podcast, you know.
Mate, this is
like,
learn something new, really.
It's cutting edge.
It's insane. We're learning a tiny bit of Cantonese. We're learning how Sean has the vocabulary of a 4-year-old, and we're learning like what a midget is.
A 4-year-old skateboarder.
Yeah. Wow, that was cool.
Yeah.
Man.
Cool. That's radical, man.
But the thing that impresses me about Liviana Souza is in a female division that doesn't see too many finishes, she's boasting 8 submissions and two KO TKOs. Like, that's impressive, right? And they're an array of finishes. We've got rear naked chokes, we've got guillotines, we've got arm bars, we've got triangles, like lots and lots of ways for her to finish the fight. But I agree with you about Ashley Yoder. As Ashley is a far more well-rounded fighter. Her record doesn't speak to her skill set. Randa Marcos is a very tough outing for anyone. I think Angela Hill is a very tough outing for anyone. Justine Kish has lots of problems. And again, as you say, she was thrown to Mackenzie Dern to be like, Mackenzie, just sub this lady and we'll continue on the hype train, right? And although, as we saw, Mackenzie came out on top of that with a split decision, Ashley, as you say, looked good. I do think the footwork needs work, right? And what we may see here is if Liviana Souza catches Ashley Yoder's feet a little bit too far apart or too close together, we may see a takedown and some sub attempts, and we may see some grappling. But as you alluded to earlier, Sean, like, Ashley Yoder has underrated grappling as well, and I actually think this is a relatively hard fight to pick, to be honest, because we just don't know what Ashley Yoder is going to turn up. We just don't know. If Ashley Yoder was turning up and looked in the same fashion as she did against Sayori Kondo, maybe that's right. I don't remember her name, but I remember the fight.
It's definitely Kondo.
Yeah, then I'd pick her hands down to win the fight, right? But I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see. Tommy, do you have any thoughts on this fight?
If I'm being honest, of course, I'm not misogynistic or anything like that.
Oh, God.
I don't watch many lighter weight division men. I mean, like lighter weight division fights. I do, and I don't. and I also don't watch the female fighters as much. Of course, I believe that females are just as skilled as men and whatnot. So
here come the caveats.
Yeah, the PC.
Just because of as a semi-casual, just because of the lack of finishes, I don't watch it and appreciate it as much. So I don't have as much of opinion on either fighter. I think just based on the record, I see Livia being more dangerous because she actually has TKO finishes and KO finishes, which are rare in women's MMA. Period.
I agree. I really agree.
Apart from the top of my head, Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah. And Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg. Out of those three, and Fallon Fox, arguably, you rarely see.
Ooh, we're getting controversial, lads. We're getting controversial.
You rarely see KO, like actual knockout cold finishes. I mean, Holly Holm with Ronda Rousey as an exception, but I see Livia more dangerous than Ashley Yoder, but of course the fight can go either way.
So, Sean, what's your pick?
Yeah, it's just hard. Like, Ashley, she needs to be putting the pressure on for this one. She's just so chilled out. I was listening to an interview with her the other day, and people were like, "Oh, so how have you been, like, picking up training in quarantine?" And she was like, "Oh, I just started gardening, to be honest. I just do a lot of gardening." And I was like, "Fuck, like, it needs to be something fire, But I don't know. I think this is going to be a good performance for Ashley Yoder. So yeah, I'm going to go with Ashley on this one. I think it's going to be a unanimous decision where she sort of comes on strong in the late rounds of the fight.
Tommy, do you want to give us a prediction, or do you want to abscond and be on Team Fallon Fox forever?
No. I'll give a prediction. I think based on what I see, I'm gonna number one watch the card from bottom to the top, just so I get an overview of even the less entertaining fights, so to speak. To be honest, most of the fights that aren't supposed to be entertaining end up being more entertaining than the ones that are, and vice versa. So I think Livia will probably get a unanimous decision from this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Sean. I'm going to take Ashley Yoder, and the reason I'm going to take Ashley Yoder is although Souza clearly has a deeper finish rate and is more able to get the finish, hunts the finish more than Yoder does, I just feel that the more well-rounded MMA fighter should win this, and to me that is Ashley Yoder. So I will take Ashley Yoder by decision. So yeah, Sean, if you could break down the next fight. The next fight is Dorcas versus Porter, and if you could just touch on that, combined, these gentlemen weigh more than the arena they're going to fight in.
Is that wow?
That's legit, mate. It's legit.
Really? Well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me too much. This is bizarre. Like,
it is super bizarre.
With the, one like weird thing about these coronavirus cards is it does bring some people to the UFC who in any other timeline or in any other like parallel universe would not be there on that night. Yep. But because of the crazy world we live in, they are. And I think this is true. I think Chris Daukaus is more deserving. Like, he's a champion of another promotion, and he looks, from the videos I've seen, like, quite good. Parker Porter, though, this one is really bizarre. So in the regionals, he fought John Jones in the regionals and fought Gabriel Gonzaga. Yeah. Like, what sort of regional run is that?
and got fucked in both of them.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I don't know who his coach is. But if you're managing like an early pro or like an amateur's career, and you manage to put him against the greatest of all time, and then just Gabriel Gonzaga.
Oh, like, you had a perfect opportunity there to be like the greatest of all time and John Jones, but you fucked it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. But either way, this is just so weird. But I think out of the two of them, I think Parker Porter is just a guy that they've somehow, like, they rang, loads of other people and no one else would sort of step in. But Chris Daukaus, I think, looks relatively decent. Like, he sort of jumps in and out of the pocket and he has a really nice overhand right. So yeah, I'm going with Chris Daukaus for that one. But yeah, I'm loving the weirdness. I think ever since that Bogatov fight, I'm all on board with people getting brought into the UFC, which just should not be there at all.
I mean, Roman Bogatov has been cut, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So my take on this fight is neither should be in the UFC. Parker Porter is only in the UFC because everyone else was training, and he picked up the phone from his couch and was like, "What? A fight in 2 weeks? Yeah, all right, sure, I'll take it."
Yeah, I've done that my whole career.
Yeah, why not? I mean, John Jones, who's this guy? I thought John Jones and Gabriel Gonzaga, so these things happen. I mean, what is hilarious about Parker Porter is he actually made it to the 3rd round against Gabriel Gonzaga.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and got arm triangled with him like with 3 minutes left in the fight or something. But yeah, hilarious. I mean, look, I don't know anything about either of these fighters really. I just had a look at their record and I realized that, probably neither of them should be in the UFC. Do I see any of them having a title run? No. Parker Porker. Wow, that's rude. Wow, that is rude. Parker Porker. That's his name now. Yeah, he's 35. Chris Daukaus is 30, and obviously the heavyweight division, you can get away with being a little bit older, but I don't really see too much for the UFC in either of these. I'm just going to go ahead and give my pick now, and my pick is I don't care. So yeah, Tommy, have you got any thoughts or a pick for us?
I think Christopher Daukaus shows a lot of potential. The heavyweight division is pretty shallow at the moment.
He's even laughing as he says that.
Top contenders only being. I'm being serious. So with top contenders only being Francis and Stipe really, and DC. With DC dropping out after this fight, Christopher Daukaus is on the way to the title run.
Oh my god!
So I think Christopher Daukaus by KO. And you'll hear about him more in the near future for sure.
Mate, there must have been some alcohol in that fucking fruit that you've been eating because that was an absolutely ludicrous pick. Sean, what's your pick?
I'm going to say what Jack would probably say in this situation, which is you just can't trust a guy with 2 surnames in Parker Porter. Like,
true.
So much about that guy that just doesn't really make any sense. And I know Jack would have said that. So yeah, I'm going with Chris Daukaus by overhand right.
What round are you taking for your mate Daukaus?
Oh, first round.
First round. Okay, fine. I'm going to change my pick to a very realistic pick, and I'm going with Parker Porter, and I'm going with him simply because of his name. I think that's an absolutely phenomenal name.
None of it makes sense.
It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So let's move on to a little bit more of a legitimate fight, and that's Felice Herrig versus Werner Jandiroba. I'm actually really excited for this fight. I think that, again, Felice Herrig's record doesn't really speak to her skill set. People forget that Felice Herrig had a really storied kickboxing career, 28 fights, 23 wins and 5 losses. And, I think that shows in her MMA. Like, her fighting on the outside is pretty good. Again, when she's not so hesitant. And I think, Sean touched on that, and that kind of took one of my larger points away. And that's that she is very hesitant. And we do see a bit of the Holly Holm in there, where there's, Holly throws at air, but Holly does it with a purpose. Holly's doing it to be like, where's my range? And she's trying to draw people in because they think that the range is away and whatever. Whereas Felice it feels like Felice is throwing because she feels she needs to throw something. But in Felice's career, we've seen 4 submissions, and from a kickboxer, I think that's really impressive. To have only 1 KO TKO and 4 submissions for a kickboxer, I think is really impressive. But I'm quite high on Jandiroba, to be truly honest with you. She comes into the UFC and her debut is Carla Esparza. Like, Jesus Christ, like, how much of a fucking tough debut do you want in Carla Esparza? And okay, she loses a unanimous decision. That's fine. But then she picks up a rear naked in the 2nd round against Mallory Martin. And again, I don't know too much about Mallory Martin, but finishes in the UFC in the female division are hard to come by. And Jandiroba is a finish machine, right? Serious grappling, serious grappling. An array of different finishes. Rear naked chokes, arm bars, triangles, you name it. She favors a rear naked, and I can actually see her getting a rear naked here, to be truly honest with you. Felice has never been submitted and she's never been knocked out, but equally, we haven't seen somebody that's faced Felice that has the level of grappling, I think, than we see with Jandiroba, right? The closest I think is Michelle Waterson because she has some really underrated grappling, and maybe Alexa Grasso, but you know, we don't. I don't know. I think this is a pretty clean and cut fight to me, to be honest. Tommy, what do you think? I mean, I know you're going to have no opinion because you just watched Fallon Fox. So
No, I mean, I'm aware of Felice Herrig more than Werner.
it's because you follow her on Instagram, isn't it? Admit it.
I don't follow her on Instagram for that matter, but yes,
You definitely do.
He does, doesn't he?
He's literally someone that does.
He literally just unfollowed her like 2 seconds ago.
I don't follow her on Instagram. But I think Felice Herrig is for sure the better striker. She's coming off 2 losses from really good opponents as well, Michelle Waterson and Karolina
Kowalkiewicz.
Yep, I'm not even going to try to butcher her name. I'll just call her Karolina. 2 tough fights for her. She's beaten quite a few good girls. Alexa Grasso, who's a pretty promising fighter. I do watch some women's MMA, but here and there. Same with some undercards as well. Not even just women's MMA. Most of the time, females get put on the undercard, and I generally watch the main event. But of course, when there's bigger names on the undercard, I generally start watching the undercard a bit more. So, back to my point about Felice Herrig is the better striker, in my opinion, in this matchup. But it depends on whether
Jandiroba, yeah,
is going to be able to get the fight to the ground, and then we'll see what happens from there. Sean? Especially because Felice is hard to tap as well. So
I agree, she is hard to tap. Sean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a pretty basic one, to be honest. I think Felice is pretty hesitant a lot of the time because she's scared of the takedown, even though she's got decent like striking and everything else. And Jandiroba's a really good shoot boxer who relies on that striking wise. So I think Jandiroba is going to get this done, to be honest. She, like you said, Harry, she has really, really good grappling. Like
she does.
Like, even though the fight with Carla Esparza didn't go away, and by the way, with Carla Esparza, I don't know if this is a weird comparison, but she's like the Brian Barberina of the strawweight division.
Oh my God, that's such a good comparison. She just
knocks off like prospects. Like they get someone like what's the name from Alpha Male a while ago?
Cynthia Calvillo.
Yeah, Cynthia Calvillo. You know, like big prospects, and Carla Esparza just takes her down, just holds her there. You know, she's done it with like 8 different people the UFC is trying to promote, but yeah, even in that fight, the point being, Jandiroba looked really. I think she used deep half like somewhere in that fight, which you just don't see in MMA at all. So
did you see Tommy's ears prick up when you said deep half? He's like, "What deep half? Where? Where's deep half? I like deep half. Where's deep half?"
Like the spider sense is tingling, but yeah, like I think Jandiroba's really, really good.
I do too.
And I think she's probably going to get the shot sometime early, and especially when she gets on top. She has a really, really, really good top game. So I think she's going to submit Felice Herrig probably in the 2nd round.
Oh my God, we're going for picks. I wasn't prepared. All right, so Sean's going Jandiroba, 2nd round. Sub, Tommy, you can't pick Fallon Fox.
No, I think Jandiroba is going to get the decision win. Felice Herrig hasn't lost by submission yet, and even though she's fought decent grapplers before, it hasn't been finished. I don't think Jandiroba is the one to do it, so it's going to be a 3-round smothering from Jandiroba.
I'm going to take the same as Sean, frankly, and I'm going to say it's going to be a Jandiroba sub. And just to your point, Sean, the list of people that Carla Esparza has beaten that are prospects: Rose Namajunas, Juliana Lima, Cynthia Calvillo, Werner Jandiroba, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watson.
A very green Rose Namajunas stuff.
Yeah, in the UFC Ultimate Fighter finale, right? But equally, I mean, at that point, I mean, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That was only Carla Esparza's 11th fight too. And okay, it was Rose's like 4th fight or whatever. But you know, still, just as a point as well, like the names that Carla Esparza beat on the Ultimate Fighter: Angela Hill, Tisha Torres, Jessica Penne. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
She had Felice Herrig on the regional scene, Jessica Aguilar on the regional scene, Nina Ansaroff on the regional scene, Beck Rawlings on the regional scene. Like, Jesus, man, she's been through the ringer. Serious fighter, Carla Esparza. Serious fighter.
Yeah.
So we will turn now to the last two fights on the card. I'm not going to talk about Kai Kamaka III versus Tony Kelly, simply because that was added about 3 hours ago and none of us have had a chance to research it. The last two fights we'll talk about is Herbert Burns versus Daniel Pineda and TJ Brown versus Danny Chavez. So I will start with TJ Brown, Danny Chavez. Both of these guys are quite similar, not quite as bad as our mate Dorcas and Parker Porker, but you know, it's borderline that they shouldn't be on this card, right? Like, I think TJ Brown coming off a loss against Jordan Griffin, obviously he's already in the UFC, so I kind of get that. He had a nice little arm triangle over Dylan Lockhart in the Contender Series, if anyone watched that. But other than that, I don't know. He's had 7 losses. You know, he's got like a 2-1 record where he's got half of his fights, 14 wins, 7 losses. He's good on the ground, and this to me feels a bit like a grappler versus a striker matchup. I watched a little bit of his fights, and his submission games are good. He's got some hands, but that's fine. Whereas the guy that I'm kind of excited for in this matchup is Danny Chavez, not just because his nickname is the Colombian Warrior, which is just phenomenal, but the last 3 of his fights, and this is super interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this from somebody else, right? Up until this point, he's never finished anyone, right? Comes off 2 losses and then knocks 3 dudes out in the first round. Who does that? Who does 7 decision wins, loses 2, and then gets the first 3 finishes of his career, like 10 fights in, sorry. Strange.
It was also after 2 years. Good, very good point.
So what did you say?
It was also after 2 years as well. You know, they can go on a decent strength and conditioning program and whatnot.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Tommy's at it again. First it's Paulo Costa.
I agree with that.
Now it's Danny Chavez. What's
Yeah,
wrong
it took a
with
2
you?
year. He had a 2 year break, and he's knocking people out 3 in a row. Bit
So
suspect.
you're saying that he's gone to his native Colombia, and he's had some medicine and some horse meat, and he's lifting weights.
For sure.
Some extra supplements help.
I feel that this is absolute sacrilege, and this is not something that I can condone on a professional podcast. But yeah, I mean, look, 3 first-round knockouts is nothing to sniff at. So I'm interested in that. I mean, does anyone really have any care in the world about this fight? Does anyone want to say anything on it, Sean? Anything?
I think TJ Brown looks pretty good. Like when I watched his fight on the Contender Series, I actually thought he seemed like a pretty well-rounded grappler. To be honest, like I thought it was a really good performance. I couldn't find like anything on Danny Chavez, which probably speaks like that he shouldn't be in the UFC. Like if someone doesn't have a Wikipedia page and they're an obscure fighter, I've got to do some private investigator type shit to even, find out a little bit about them. So I don't know anything about Danny Chavez at all.
It seems like you know his fucking supplement routine, you bastard.
Yeah. I'll still throw someone under the bus. I don't know, with no evidence.
Fuck's sake.
But yeah, I think TJ Brown looked really legit from what I watched of him. Really cool.
I hate you. I actually hate you. Tommy, have you got anything to say on this fight? Anything?
I agree with TJ Brown being the probably better fighter, and he's already fought in the UFC, he's fought in the Contender Series. And this Danny Chavez guy is coming from Global Legion FC, which nobody's really heard of. But he is coming off 3 knockout wins. He might make that 4. He's on a decent momentum. I don't know much about him, but I think these guys are going to be the Fight Pass prelim fighters, and that's the epitome of the career. So
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that promotion's real. I think that the UFC really needed the spot filled, so they've got some homeless guy, and they were like, just say you fought for Global Allegiance FC or whatever, and just go in there and do us a solid, mate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure that Global LFC is necessarily a Global LFC is. It probably is one of Dana's spawned fucking child that he's just spunked some money into a promotion and been like, all right, you can have a title. So yeah, Tommy, please can you give me a pick for this riveting matchup?
I think what's his name? Daniel Chavez gets the 4th TKO KO finish and continues his career. So
All right. I think that's an excellent pick. Sean, what have you got? Bearing in mind we're calling him Daniel Chavez, so Tommy's actually his father calling him his Christian name. Yeah. Sean, what have you got for me?
I think he gets absolutely smashed because he's not a real fighter, and this whole thing is going to cause massive controversy for the UFC.
Jesus Christ, go on. And when you mean smashed, what do you mean? Give me a prediction.
It's going to be like, when Mickey Rourke had that boxing match, and then like 4 weeks after, everyone realised that they just basically picked up some guy that was on loads of meth off the street and threw him in a boxing ring. That's exactly what's going to happen here. And the UFC are going to have to, they're going to have to do something about that.
Right. I promise, ladies and gentlemen, this is a professional podcast, but we move on anyway. So what's your fucking pick? Can you give me a professional pick? TJ Brown by what?
I've even forgotten the fighters. No, TJ Brown's going to put on a pretty decent grappling clinic, I reckon. Unanimous decision.
Jesus Christ, that was so difficult. So I'm going Chavez via Mexican horse kick in the first round. We'll move on to our final fight and let's fucking wrap this shit up before somebody says something really, really terrible. Tommy, the reason why I gave you Herbert Burns versus Daniel Pineda is because Herbert Burns put on a really good grappling display after he realized he couldn't throw a punch. So I wanted to throw that fight over to you for some grappling insider. So take it away. What do you think of that fight?
This is probably one of my favorite fights on the card. And I don't know why it's on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, because Herbert Burns is definitely on some momentum right now. Let's have a look. So he's won his last 1, 2, 3, 4, quite a few. He's won his last 5, in fact.
By finish?
All by finishes. 4 submissions, one KO. I remember that one, the knee from the clinch. Herbert's grappling is really good. He just beat Evan Dunham, who's also a really good grappler as well.
Black belt, yeah.
Yep, but who's also a really good black belt. I mean, what's his name? Daniel Pineda is also a black belt, and he's more of a well-rounded fighter, I'd say. But definitely. Herbert Burns is definitely the better grappler in this matchup. Herbert Burns' striking isn't as good as his brother his brother Gilbert Burns' striking looks way cleaner than his. He also shows way more power. I don't think this is going to be on the feet for too much for Herbert Burns, but there's interesting things in this fight for sure. Daniel Pineda, this is his UFC comeback actually. He fought in that PFL tournament, and he won his last two fights, but got popped for steroids, or whatever it is, banned substance. It doesn't specify, but he got popped. He won one by TKO in the first round. It was very quick against Movlid Kabulaev, who actually is a mutual opponent for the two guys. So I think in ONE FC, when Herbert fought for ONE FC, he fought Movlid and got taken down pretty much at will and dominated from the bottom position. Like, he got dominated. And of course, MMA maths doesn't make sense. Just because Daniel Pineda beat Movlid, it doesn't mean he's going to beat Herbert, because of course they're both different fighters. So there's definitely a mutual opponent there, and it's interesting to see how this one turns out. And his other fight in PFL before he got popped, he did tap the guy by submission, by guillotine as well, and that was off his shot it was off his takedown. So it wasn't like he took the guy down and then eventually guillotined him. It was a reactive entry to the guillotine from a takedown, and he eventually got the submission. I don't think he's going to catch Herbert in a guillotine from the takedowns. There's going to be interesting grappling exchanges. I think Daniel Pineda definitely has more tools to win this fight. Grappling-wise, Herbert Burns is the superior grappler. It's definitely going to be a very interesting one for me, and one I'm going to definitely watch.
I mean, I'll give a very small bit, because I know that Sean will want to talk about the submission that Herbert got against Evan Dunham. But one of the things that surprises me about Herbert is if we look at the comparison to his brother, and I know that's an unfair comparison, but they both started within their debut was within 2 months of each other in the same year, 2009, right? And we then have that whilst he has only amassed 13 fights, Gilbert's amassed 22, and the level of progression between Herbert and Gilbert has been insane. Now we also know that Gilbert Burns is, he's won world championships in the gi. He's won world championships without the gi in grappling. And we know all around he's a phenomenal athlete, right? Herbert is obviously no slouch on the ground, and he's no slouch in his jiu-jitsu game, as we saw, and I'll let Sean take that bit. But my problem here is I think that there is a massive, massive experience gap here. Not only has Daniel Pineda seen the UFC before, and let's not get away from who he fought in the UFC before, right? He fought Pat Schilling, he fought Mikey Brown and Antonio Carvalho. All of those fights, not easy opponents, right?
Not easy opponents, but if you name those 3 names, who still fights in the UFC? Who still even fights?
Sure, none of them. But then in the same vein, like, he also had Diego Brandao, he had Robert Whiteford, like, and okay, these were 6 years ago, these fights, right? So you know, I understand that some of those guys have retired and moved on to different promotions. But my issue here is as Tommy has mentioned, Daniel Pineda has way more ways to finish this fight. And I think that if he can stuff the takedown of Burns, whilst I agree that I don't see Burns is going to fall into a guillotine because he takes people down in a jiu-jitsu fashion rather than a wrestling fashion, right? He uses like nice inside trips and these kinds of things. Like, I think if Daniel Pineda can keep this fight standing, he's probably going to put Herbert Burns away. And I think it'll be pretty brutal because he's got 8 KOs, and, you know, whilst that's only 31% of his finishes and the rest of them are 18 submissions, like, you know, this guy has finished every single win that he's got. Right? Let's put that into perspective. 26 wins, 26 finishes. That's insane. And to put Herbert Burns in against somebody like that this early in his UFC tenure, one, but also in his MMA career, I understand that he's 5 wins, five finishes in his last 5. But Jesus, I think this is a bit of a crazy one for me. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, first of all, that him and Gilbert started training at the same time. Like, I had no clue that was even a thing, to be honest, because I think what makes him and Gilbert different is he strikes me as a guy that is really, really decent at jiu-jitsu, but his wrestling, his striking aren't at a level yet where it can sort of help him so much. Like, the last fight against Evan Dunham, it was pretty much he didn't like pick the guy up and suplex him from the back. He basically was in that back body lock and then sort of pulled into it like a jiu-jitsu player, not an MMA fighter, if that makes sense. And even on the back, don't get me wrong, he's super, super legit. Like, he's doing a couple of things there that you very rarely, if ever, see from guys in MMA, unless they're, you know, elite level grapplers for MMA. And I think in terms of jiu-jitsu, going by the standards of MMA, it is elite, but unlike Gilbert, he doesn't have those other facets to his game to build it up. I think he's going to get away with it, though, with Daniel Pineda, just because I definitely agree with you in terms of, if you look at his record, he's been in the UFC, he's got tons of experience, but so did Evan Dunham. And this was why last time I went with Evan Dunham. But it's why it's a good fight, because if he beats him, he beats an experienced vet. But I think the point of Daniel Pineda's career that he's meeting him at, I think that he's going to beat him. I think Daniel Pineda, I don't think he would have got because he's coming back into the UFC, isn't he, from timeout? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't think he would have got
it's only been about a year, but it was the PFL featherweight tournament, and he won both the fights up to the finals, and then he got popped. So he didn't.
Beat Jeremy Kennedy. Okay. He hasn't had too long out of the octagon, but it's his second UFC stint. And I just want to clear it, just before you carry on, I just want to clear up. Both of these guys made their debut in 2012, Herbert Burns and Gilbert Burns. Herbert Burns made it in February 2012, and Gilbert made his debut in January 2012. And my only argument before you continue about Evan Dunham is Evan Dunham is not a finisher. Not really. Like, of his 18 wins, he's only knocked out or TKO'd 3 people, right? The rest have been submissions and decisions. Now, the other thing I'll say is, of the fights running into that Herbert Burns, Olivier Aubin-Mercier knocked him out with knee and punches. And where is Olivier Aubin-Mercier now? Cut in the PFL.
He's cut, but he's also really good.
I mean,
he was promising at one point in his career.
He's pretty decent, to be fair.
He's okay.
The kid from TriStar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. His grappling's very good and his striking's okay. But anyway, like, Francisco Trinaldo, we saw what happened to him. Just knocked out Jai Herbert, and okay, he was losing that fight, but knocked out Jai Herbert, right? and then he comes into Herbert Burns. So the difference in Evan Dunham and Daniel Pineda, I'm not so sure is an accurate comparison. But please go ahead.
Yeah, I suppose overall what I'm saying is I don't think that Daniel Pineda would have been given the call to come into the UFC if it wasn't to make Herbert Burns look good. And I personally think
I agree.
it's a pretty good matchup, to be honest, for that. I think even though he may have finished a bit more, like I don't think he fought necessarily like the same competition that Evan did. And I still don't think he's like a super dangerous finisher that's,
He's finished every single one of his wins.
What, Daniel Pineda?
Yes. Yeah. 26 wins, 26 finishes. What are you talking about?
He's not a finisher, bro.
Oh, fuck.
He's not a dangerous finisher. He does nothing but finish.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm wrong.
He'll be killed.
I think either way, Herbert Burns is, I think he's probably going to win this one. But I think if he doesn't round out his game, that'll probably come back to bite him at some point.
I mean, yeah, like if you can just jump off Herbert Burns' shaft for 1 second and do a little bit of research, right? Like, yeah. So the thing with Pineda,
the Pineda thing's weird. Like, don't get me wrong, it's been a warm day, but I swear everything I was watching of him, I was like, this guy's just not dangerous.
No, so he's got 18 submissions and 8 KO TKOs in 26 wins.
Maybe I was just watching the decisions he lost.
So yeah, so there was that. So this is my only thing, right? He's lost 13 times. He's been subbed 6 of those times, and of his submission losses, predominantly, they are. There's what is funny is he fought Chaz Skelly twice, knee barred him twice. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing.
Chaz Skelly's also really good too.
Chaz Skelly is very good. He is very good.
He's very similar to Darren Elkins also. When they fought, it was quite interesting to see who was a better grappler, and I think it was Darren Elkins who came out on top against Chaz Skelly. Yeah. Yes, the damage who didn't really do much damage until, yeah.
But I think the reason why he's called the damage is ironic. It's more because he takes it rather than...
Yeah.
Oh my God. By far one of the toughest guys for sure.
Yeah, unbelievable. But yeah, he's been subbed by an array of things as well. 2 knee bars, a triangle, and a couple of rear nakeds, right? So... I don't know. Do I think he has the better grappling? Probably not. I think, but does he have the better MMA grappling? Maybe. Maybe. I think Herbert may not have been able to round out his game in the 11 fights he has, or the 13 fights he has in comparison to Daniel. I'm going to go to picks now, and I'm going to start off. Like I think this is going to be a rough night for Herbert Burns, and I picked Daniel Pineda by KO or TKO, to be honest. I'm going to go TKO, and I'm going to go round 2 because the way I see this fight going is I see Herbert is going to desperately try to get the takedown. Is not going to be able to get it. If he does get it, I think Pineda will get back up, and then I think there's not much for Herbert to do. But Tommy, what have you got?
I think I do agree with you to a degree. Of course, if you count the 2 no contests, Daniel Pineda is on a 6-fight winning streak, 3 submissions, 3 KOs, and it does seem that he's dangerous with the guillotines off the shot. But I think ultimately Herbert's going to get the takedown. Pineda's going to try to guillotine. He's going to get out and eventually work towards his back for a finish. So I think maybe round 2 finish from the back for Herbert.
Beautiful. Sean?
Yeah, I reckon it's going to be probably a first round or early second round sub for Herbert. I do agree with you though, Harry. I think if it gets into deep waters, I think some of those holes in Burns' game could be exposed. But yeah, I'll say first or second round sub.
All right. Well, gentlemen, that is it. Any closing thoughts, Tommy, on the card? Anything you want to say?
I might put some money on a couple fighters to see how it goes. Just to see if my picks are correct or not. Definitely put one on Daniel Chavez. He's definitely going to go on the accumulator. Definitely an interesting fight. So I'm definitely going to stay out for the most part.
So what we do at the end, as always, is I'm going to ask Jack. It's definitely not Jack. I've got Jack in the brain. Sean, what do you think your fight of the night is going to be?
Ooh, I'll go for Merab versus Dodson.
Oh, you're such a fucking pagan. Tommy?
I think fight of the night is going to be Jim Miller, Vince Pichel.
Ooh,
If it stays
that's a
standing, that
good
is, I
shout.
think it's going to be a good scrap. And
So I am going to go for Sean O'Malley, Marlon Vera. I think what we're going to see is we are going to see O'Malley tested a little bit more than he has been, and I think that Vera will land something. And yeah, I just think that's going to be a great fight. But yeah, perfect. Well, I will thank both of you very much for your time. And yeah, let's see how it comes. So Sean, thank you. Tommy, thank you. It's been a pleasure
Thank
as
you.
always. And we'll speak to you soon. Take care.